So now here we are with the other form of cardiovascular exercise, which is the exercise bike. Now, first thing you will notice what we have to do when you get an exercise bike as your choice of exercise type. Check first the seat height, which becomes one of the most paramount things. Now, how to know if it's the right height would be that when he's sitting, okay, his legs should be able to go almost as straight. It need not be fully locked, but as straight as possible. Okay, this side, and now try the other side. So it almost goes there. Again, now do a few rotations. Okay, yes. So now this is something to check. Keep going. I'll explain some points. Just keep doing this. Now this is a height which is pretty decent, okay, which means he can get a full range of motion during his revolutions. Now how to know if it's too high? If it's too high, his pelvis will move. He would be going this way, this way. If this is happening to reach, then the height is too much. How to know if it's too low? Is that his knees obviously wouldn't extend fully. His knees would be in this position. You don't want this to be happening, a short range action, nor do you want so long that your pelvis is shifting. Okay, so this becomes the first paramount thing when choosing this mode as your sort of cardiovascular exercise. Now, within this, things to realize is that there are mainly sort of three positions that you can use the exercise bike on. Okay, one, seated, riding comfortably. Second becomes leaning forward, okay, flexed at the hip. Okay, so there's flexion happening, is rested. Third becomes when he's up off the seat, and just try, you can hold here and then just come up and then yes. Okay. So all of them work the muscles slightly differently. Different muscles are targeted, but going forward will have a bit to place a bit of a stretch on the hamstrings, okay, because of that flex position and staying there. So these become the three positions. Each can be used to sort of elicit different responses from the muscle. Which one would be the hardest in this? Ideally, we think sometimes that is the standing one, okay, because your body weight is not now being carried by the seat, so you're up and you're pushing. But what we also have to realize there is that that body weight itself is allowing you to push the pedal down, okay. Sitting where the hip is locked and you're not getting to use body weight is actually what makes this exercise a lot harder. So now his quadriceps are being used to push, his gluteals are being used slightly for extension, okay, and is constantly moving in this. So this becomes pretty hard, and hard compared to what it looks like. It looks pretty easy, he's just sitting and it's an easy sort of movement. But if we make this resistance go up, he will actually, you will find that no, it becomes much harder for him to do it while seated because he doesn't get any support from the hip. If you can just stand up again once more, Varun, just so that people can see. Now you can see he can just go on doing this. Of course, there's load on the quads, but still there's a lot more body weight. Okay, he's able to use body weight, especially when it's heavy, right? So this is where a little bit more core activation will come in because right now the hip is free. There's no connection. There's no point of contact for the hip. Okay, so this side to side movement is happening. You can maybe, to make it a bit more difficult, try not to do as much side to side and say as stable and then try. Okay, so now it becomes much harder for him because there's much more stability. Okay, the core is stable and is just now pushing with the legs. Now again, shake side to side, becomes much easier. So that's why you find a lot of people moving a lot when they get off the seat. Okay, now these are simple things by which we can make the exercise harder or easier. You can sit back. So of course it helps him because he's a light guy, so good for him. Somebody who's heavy, it becomes much harder for them. Okay, now most exercise bikes would have a very similar console, just like most of these treadmills or your cross trainers. Okay, this one doesn't. Okay, now there are some of these exercise bikes and these can be pretty expensive depending which company you get it from. There are some very famous brands, which can be quite expensive. Now, why are these exercise bikes having no console? Okay, because so speaking about this exercise bike, why does this one not have a console like how the cross trainer had? Or there are so many other exercise bikes you'll notice in gyms which have a nice console. Okay, it's because these type of exercise bikes are generally used in a class setting. So even if you go to a gym, you will find that there'll be a whole setting with various exercises, with various exercise bikes where a group of people do it together. Now, if you're looking for general fitness, especially in a group setting, it has its own pluses and minuses. The pluses are that it's much more fun. There's music, there's different movements. There's generally a teacher who leads the class. What could be maybe a possible drawback if you're working with a specific athlete and looking for specific results? Then in a group, you have to follow the group and the rhythm of that group. Now, when you're working as an athlete, strength and conditioning wise, you obviously are training, like I've always said, with a plan. It's all target based. So that one workout, if you just join a group for fun, that can sometimes have an impact on what you plan to achieve. To give an example, if somebody is a strength athlete and ends up doing a class, low intensity or moderate intensity, has good fun, and has done it for maybe 3 days, each class is around 45 minutes. And this strength athlete is in now the strength phase of training. Now we have to ask, what are the muscle fiber types we are trying to recruit in that class versus what we want. So this is where again, you as a strength coach has to know the answers. So that's why there should be no exercise which is done by a strength and conditioning coach for fun. Every exercise and every movement has to have a reason. Okay, and that becomes one of the differences between a workout plan which is done by somebody in the gym for general fitness versus somebody who is doing strength and conditioning. So a strength and conditioning coach is not just somebody who gives you an exercise plan. He or she gives you an exercise plan to achieve a certain target so that you're able to compete and perform better. This is the baseline, okay? And this becomes very important for us to know that when you're training, whether on this, whether on the cross trainer, there's a reason why you're training, okay? So now here, what happens when there's no console? How do you train? How do you know? This becomes a bit more basic, okay? So here they'll have a knob generally, which will have an arrow, one going plus, one going minus. Plus will make it harder. So the resistance on the tire down becomes much harder. It seems to be a bit tight. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So stopping is down. Now what also happens here, these machines are slightly different compared to an exercise bike with a console. There when you stop, the wheel stops. Here, if he doesn't take his feet off before it stops, it can sometimes just lead to a very uncomfortable position. So to stop now, you press and the wheel stops, okay? If you try to stop it, especially at a very high speed with your own legs, okay, that would almost, you can compare it to, going downhill running, and there's a certain momentum you've got, and now you want to stop. And that load on the knees can be pretty high. And especially for those maybe, who are not athletes, or even for athletes, if you're really spinning it at high speed and now you want to slow down, and especially if you want to not slow down, but suddenly stop, pause, it is almost extremely hard on this. Okay. So to do that, that's why there's a braking system which slows down the wheel. So that becomes one thing. Not having a console now, just to make it harder or easier, that's a bit of a challenge, because if you want to make it harder, you have to sort of twist this, make it hard. This machine doesn't seem to be working that well, but still the standard is you twist towards plus, it just becomes harder. You make it minus, it becomes easy. Okay, it's almost like there's a brake onto it which touches. The more plus you make, it touches and you have more resistance. Now, what would be the difference between this and a panel? The panel is a bit more precise, okay, because you get exactly the numbers, okay, resistance level 1, 2, so on and so forth. This becomes more guesswork. Like you might remember today that the plus is at this angle. Tomorrow, if somebody else used this exercise bike, you might not know where it was. Okay, so that becomes a bit sort of hard in this. One more difference, okay, in these type of exercise bikes is, this is what you may call an upright bike. Okay, so upright as in he's sitting upright. Now, this has the mechanics or the sort of design is such that it almost is like a racing bike. So if Varun, if you can put your hands here and do, he's literally now doing like what you see these professional racers in sport do, right? Where he's bent and he's pedaling nice and hard, right? So this is what you see. Then sometimes if you can go up off the seat and do, again you see, when they're going uphill, they'll try this. Okay, you can sit back, yeah, and then again go up. So relax, yeah. Now here, this becomes one position. Another position where the elbows become a bit more comfortable is in the center. He just holds there and relaxes. Again, if you go up, okay, so this becomes another movement. Again, you can shake your body side to side, try it. This is what you'll normally find, athletes doing. When you go uphill, you have to use your body weight, okay. So that is something else you'll notice. You can sit back, thank you. So this, as an upright bike, you'll notice these are the positions, okay, different handles. Again, there's no standard pattern across the world. Different companies will have different patterns, okay. This is something we need to understand. So you go to a different country with an athlete, you go to maybe a different state, okay, the machine can be different. And you have to take that into consideration because you have to fit into an angle which your athlete might not be comfortable with. So keep this sort of, awareness on, so that you know that whatever you're doing, it can be sometimes a bit tricky with these machines. Not that it will harm you immediately, but because if you do this over 4 days, and if it's a movement or an angle which you are not used to, or your athlete, okay, it can maybe lead to some uncomfortable situations. Now in this, one more thing, as you can see, there are various sort of levers or sort of knobs. Most of them will be, to either adjust this. This can go higher, okay. So for people, who want this a slightly bit higher, he would be able to then be here. And let's say if the handle was here, he'd be able to sit a lot more comfortably, okay. If he wants to be down, he'd be here, okay. It can sort of go one notch lower, so he would be then here. So that changes how his hip stays. There are machines, and if you notice in gyms, most gyms, the exercise bikes which have a console, they will normally have one which is like this, very similar. The console will be somewhere here and you pedal somewhat similar. And then there's something else which is called the recumbent bike. The recumbent bike will have a backrest, okay, and the angle of the legs will be slightly forward. So there's greater hip flexion. So when they push while sitting on a recumbent bike, you're here and they're pushing in this angle, okay, rather than like how it is now. As you can see right now, he's pushing down, okay, the whole force is going down. So this becomes one of those movements where his body weight, his natural angle is this way. Where is an recumbent bike? Where does it come into play? What does it help for? Is there use, or is it just because it looks nice? Now the recumbent bike can be useful for maybe people who are again older, the elderly population, because they are not able to sit like this. If they don't have a strong back, they will not be able to sit for long, okay. So if there's no support, they can't, but if there's support, they are able to rest back. So let's assume, just to show, if my hand is like a support system, so you can just rest. Varun, is this more comfortable where you can rest back? Definitely, right? So this is what happens when you have a backrest. The recumbent bike does this. One of the things, and this is what you have to keep in mind sometimes, and I say sometimes, not all the times, because of the angle of pushing, okay, where you're pushing forward, okay, your hamstrings are stretching, okay, your glutes, you are in a flexed position, and then you're producing power. Occasionally what can happen is that position itself and that stretch itself can slightly load up the lower back. So though that exercise, which is a recumbent bike, is made for the fact that you're supposed to rest, sometimes that can happen. And it can happen especially when some machines are not designed properly. Now one of the things with exercise machines, and especially if someone's looking at maybe buying these machines for your own gym or for any setup, some of the better companies which are established and which have been there overall, they tend to have maybe a person, maybe a kinesiology expert, okay, or somebody who's an expert in biomechanics, and they have the whole sort of machine designed with the expertise of such people. And then the machine will be designed to fit people of different heights, okay, different sort of structures. So there'll be adjustments. Machines which are maybe built by companies that are not so reputable, what happens is it's just a product. There's a wheel, there's pedals, and something is set up and given to you. So you have to ensure that, I would say, specifically with cardiovascular machines, treadmills, your cross trainers, get these from companies which are actually well established, because they do have most of the time a research department which keeps track. But something which is more basic and not much research done, it's just something where something is assembled, you get it of course cheaper. But I'd say for exercise machines, because you sit for long, this does make a difference, and posture does make a difference. Also, same goes with your resistance training machines. If there's a bench press for that matter, and you're sitting on, and if there's no adjustable sort of mechanism, and if your arms are going to be here and you're going to do the bench press in this manner, okay, more than 90 degrees angle here, and you're going to do it this way, and this has happened, I can say from practical experience, I've seen people who have had shoulder issues, because they do, and they can immediately feel it in the shoulder, and it depends on the injury what happens. But yes, exercise machines, I would say in general, if you get good machines which have a reputation, machines which have good angles, it will cost you more, but because you're going to use it for years and years, and so many kilometers will be done on those, they definitely play a role. Now coming to dumbbells, it doesn't make much of a difference whether it's a nice silver dumbbell looking like silver coated, or whether it's just a basic one, black color. The dumbbells don't make a difference much, as long as, I would say, they have a coating of maybe rubber on top, and that's done just so that the impact sound is slightly lesser, the grip is slightly better, it doesn't slip off. And in dumbbells, if ever choosing, make sure that they are more hexagonal. You don't choose the round ones, because the chances of a dumbbell rolling off a bench and falling on somebody's toes, that always stays. So if you choose something which is hexagonal, so it stays fixed. Okay. So with dumbbells, barbells, doesn't really make much of a difference, as long as the weights are perfect. But like I said earlier, to remember that every machine will be different, every company will be different. Within weights itself, we have to understand that there's dumbbells out there, and if you take a dumbbell and weigh, and if you take from a different gym, generally there'll be around a 200 to sometimes up to even 500 discrepancy, depending on which company you go for. So some of the bigger companies have a reputation to maintain, they sort of export all over the world, so they make sure that those things don't happen. But sometimes you might go for something which is much cheaper, and you might have these issues. So do keep this in mind, okay? Keep these points in mind, so that your machines should, I would say, generally be of top quality. So coming back to now the whole exercise about doing it on a cycle, what is it that he has been doing all this time? Was there any impact? Okay. Was there your body weight which you are pushing by standing on it much? No, that was a choice. Like the cross trainer, he has a choice to stand up, but he has a choice to sit. Okay. So in general, especially if the body posture is such where he had to keep it up, it'd be much more comfortable. So for most athletes, I would say, if you're start off with something basic. Just let them stand, and let them be upright, and let them hold, and just let them pedal. Build some endurance first, just like we do with muscle endurance as well. Once that endurance is built, then let's look at anybody standing or doing something which is bent over and so forth. Okay. So hope this clears many of the doubts and many of the queries about an exercise bike, how to use it, when to use it. One last point I'll add is, it becomes one of the great tools when you want to train your athlete and build some good lactate tolerance. So let's say there's a swimmer and you want them to really last their legs for the 100 meters sprint. Okay. So, and if you want to work their quads, you can really get this high and make them push. So there's movement, okay, and there's still lactic acid being produced. Now, one more way which the lactic acid can be produced is also by doing a wall chair, or what's called a wall sit. Only difference with the wall sit is that there's no lungs being worked and there's no movement. So this is one more way of doing it, where you can do cycling. But again, there are various factors to consider. You have to observe that the knees don't take load, the back doesn't come into play. So observation is the key. Observe. But this becomes one of those ways to increase your lactate tolerance for a badminton player, for a swimmer, but just make sure you observe. And if it doesn't work, what do? You regress, you make it easier. Don't push, and don't be that typical coach who says like, oh, if it's hurting, I don't care, push more. Okay. So hope this helps for you to design better programs with an exercise bike. Thank you.